So here we are. It's the end of 2024, beginning of 2025, our last podcast for the year. Very excited for the things we did this year. Been a big year for us, right?
Yeah, no, it's been super great. It's been a long year from, back in January when we both received that phone call,
Yes.
right? And then kind of a lot of the soul searching about what are we going to do. But I
Mm.
think we landed in a good spot. I mean, I'm really encouraged about where we are. Building out this business has been really exciting. It's been scary at times. The fact that we're able to get a few customers during the year. I think most importantly, how we ended the year,
Mm-hmm.
with the release of our book and this podcast that we're starting. So I'm really encouraged by those things. What are the things that stand out for you?
Absolutely. Very much the same where you are. I was actually thinking about it this morning about what were my favorite things about what we managed to accomplish in 2024. Definitely the book is definitely up there.
Yeah.
The podcast, definitely agree with that too. And you kind of hit on it when you were talking about working with the customers that we had this year. I think for me, one of the most exciting things was actually getting that ability to take what we were trying to bring to market and putting it in front of people and seeing how quickly it was able to go and transform some of the folks we're working for. That was very validating and very exciting from that perspective, and kind of gave me a lot of momentum to get through to the end of the year.
Yeah. Yeah, for sure. And, I think the different channels we have now in terms of getting out both our message, the framework, and things like that is also encouraging. So, not just relying upon LinkedIn, but going across the board, across all the different streaming services and things like that as well has
Yeah.
been exciting. So this is something I wanted to do for a long time. I told you, I still have it in the back of my mind. I got to do some sort of cooking YouTube channel at some point. So
I
I'm
don't,
not promoting that on here, but this is the first foray into that for sure.
definitely. Yeah. Funny was my kid's been pushing me to do something like that as well, to do a cooking show. And I'll tell you, it's intriguing. And now that we've had some experience with this one, who knows, maybe in the future, watch for, cooking with Matt and dining with Bonville or something like that crazy.
There's gonna be
There's
lots of wine involved and
There
just
won't
a
be lots
lot
of
of
wine.
random non sequiturs. No, it's gonna be great. But anyway, moving back to what we're doing here, what about this coming year, 2025? I mean, what's most exciting for you, I guess, for what we're embarking on?
Wow, there's a lot going on, right? So, I mean, we have the training materials coming out, the certification program that's based on the framework. We have other publications in the works, plus the growing of the channel and having guests coming in and sharing some of their stories with us and some of their perspectives on the industry. So there's a lot. I mean, it'd be hard to pick, quite frankly. But I actually think that the guests coming onto the podcast is probably the most exciting for me.
Yeah, I'd agree. I'm really anxious to kind of get some other voices on here and other experiences that we can kind of dive into and share and explore further. I think for me, the biggest thing is I'm not exactly sure how this thing's going to unfold. Going into it last year, the idea was we'll just do consulting gigs, et cetera, which is certainly a good way to make a living and go about running your business, but I think that's just one small part of what we're going to end up doing. And so I'm really excited about, how that's going to kind of manifest itself this year as we explore these different things, get different feedback from people. Um, so for me, that's also really exciting as to, I don't know how exactly it's going to unfold.
Yeah, there's certainly a lot of mystery in the future for us, but I think it's exciting because of the successes we had in 2024. I have a lot of confidence that we're on the right track and that we have folks that are excited about engaging with us and working with the material that we have. The sales that we were starting to see coming in, us being on the top hot releases on Amazon was certainly very validating from that perspective. So I think I'm just excited about the whole of it and what we will discover about ourselves, our customer base, about the folks that are wanting to engage us. There's a lot we're going to learn in 2025, and I'm very encouraged by that and actually quite energized because of it.
Yeah, for sure. For sure. So one thing I wanted to do, start doing these podcasts because we do talk a lot about storytelling and the importance of storytelling when you're doing demos or presentations. But even more so, I mean, just storytelling as a human experience, I think
Yeah.
is really important because, I have 2 young kids. So I'm telling stories or reading them stories at night. We tell stories around the table, going back to our ancestors, telling stories around the campfire, as a way to kind of convey the human experience and lessons and things like that as well. So
Yeah.
I'd like to have a little story time with each of these podcasts. It won't be that long, but
Yeah.
I thought I'd start with one, which is kind of amusing from my past. This actually is around when I first started getting to sales. It's back in '99. I think I'd been 2 months in at our company, Introspect.
Mhm.
And this is probably like the third or fourth sales call I'd ever been on, right? And we had flown across country from San Francisco to DC to meet with a couple different prospects out there. And this is probably one of my first one or two meetings with this seller, right? But anyway, to set this up though, I'm very adamant about not talking about anything about a sales call until we are far away from the building and from the meeting room and from the client, right?
Mhm.
And the reason I am is because of the story, right? So anyway, we're on this call. We have this meeting, and it's okay. The guy's not really getting it. It's not really landing. Afterwards, we're about ready to get back in our car and hit the Beltway in DC, which is could be a long time. So we're in the bathroom, it's kind of washing up, and the sales guy's sitting there talking really loud in the bathroom, like, oh man, this was a useless call. This guy just doesn't get it. I mean, he couldn't do anything anyway. It's really, really a waste of time. And just as he says that, all of a sudden we hear like this flush. And then the stall door opens and the guy that was in the meeting comes out of the stall. And we're just like, we're dumbfounded. We're just like, oh my God. And he doesn't say a word. He walks over to the sink, washes his hands, and then leaves. And we're just looking at each other. And I'm like, well, lesson learned.
And that sound effect to punctuate the deal, right?
Yeah, there's your deal being flushed down the toilet as we speak.
Uh,
So
uh,
anyway, I've since then we don't talk about it at all. When they start talking, I'm like, nope, nope. And even in meeting rooms, this is the thing too, right? With the wired meeting rooms and people conferencing in and the microphones, I'm like, no. Even if they've left, we do not talk about it in the meeting. In fact, we don't talk about it in the lobby. We get outside the building, far enough away where we can have a discussion, right? So it's just common practice, right? And I think tying it back to kind of our book and the things that we try to advocate for in there, I think the biggest thing is, control the things you can control, right? I can't control how that meeting went necessarily or how he took it, et cetera. But I certainly can control how he felt afterwards and things that we said about him and what he heard. Right? So, lesson learned there. Yeah.
rough lesson, rough
Sure.
lesson, but definitely one that probably like that one sticks, right? And it's funny because those stories where something borderline catastrophic or personally embarrassing happens are
Yeah.
often the ones where you learn the most stuff, right? I have a story I kind of wanted to end the year off with. It's not necessarily quite as dramatic as yours, but I think because you had talked about how your story punctuated back to some of the things that we had written in the book and things we'd shared with our customers this year. I had a story about somebody who I was working with, a talented seller who, with an organization they were struggling as a sales team, and they had adopted a particular sales methodology, and it was they had adopted it well. Their execution on adopting it was really, really well done. The CRO I was working with was experiencing some serious frustration with his team not being able to close deals, and the sales cycles were getting extended, and they couldn't figure out why that was happening. So they had asked me to come along and kind of give them my 2 cents on what was happening. So I sat down with one of their top sellers who walked me through an opportunity, and I was like, okay, well, walk me through your discovery. Tell me what you know about this customer, and then let's discuss what is most relevant to be bringing up to them in this presentation you're doing this week. When they presented their discovery to me, it was tremendous. There was literally sheets of information on their spreadsheet where they had filled out forms, but all this different information this person had collected about that particular customer.
Did they
And I
use
was,
a, I'm sorry to interrupt, did they use a particular methodology that he was filling out these forms
yeah,
for, or is it his own
didn't,
process?
yeah, I didn't want to like call out the actual methodology because I
Sure.
don't want to make it sound like I was throwing anybody under the bus with respect to that, because it wasn't the methodology's fault at all. But the problem was the person was so focused on collecting this information and filling this form out that they hadn't taken the time to actually process what the information was.
Yeah.
So
Mhm.
I said, so what are the top three things that this person's going to care about then? And they couldn't answer the question because they were so focused on the mechanics of
Mhm.
filling out these forms. They had never taken the all important step of actually processing it
Right.
and
Assimilating
doing
it.
the analysis.
Well,
Right.
here's the list. Here's the list of 100 things. It's like, well, can we select the most important ones?
Yeah. I mean, so what are their goals? What are they trying to achieve? He literally had pages of them. He had no prioritization. He
Mhm.
had no weighting on that. He didn't really take the time to figure out who actually owned any of these individual things relative to the people who were coming to the meeting. And just the act of taking them through that simple process of you have this information. Now here's what you actually do with it.
Mhm.
It was invigorating to see how it energized this
Mhm.
salesperson and really changed the way that they went after their opportunities. It's like we had shot this person up with B vitamin and they went
Mhm.
flying out the door, and they were way more effective because they didn't have any kind of direction or focus or know what to do with this hard fought information that they went after. And
Yeah.
it was really invigorating. So for me, that was a great little story about how that applies.
That really ties back to our book in terms of how we've taken each one of these elements and then you scrutinize it further. Like, well, who owns this? Who cares about it? What's the priority of this? What are the potential pitfalls for everything that's on that list, though, not just in general, right? Because it's like each one of those things has different weighting depending upon where it lands and who owns it and things like that. So, no, that's a great story as well. And I think there's lessons to be learned every day when you're applying this stuff.
Yeah, it's always fun. It's fun to see somebody have that realization and then that self actualization afterwards as they go and put it into practice and how it
Mhm.
changes the way that they attack their day to day. I was thinking about that story this morning and thinking about what that means for us going forward with next year, because all that stuff we've got planned for next year, that we will be doing some of that ourselves as we discover things as we're going along.
Yeah, for sure. So definitely excited for the turn of the year here. It's always a time to reflect back as well as to look forward. And I
Mm-hmm.
think we're in a good spot right now. So really happy to be on this adventure with you, Kevin, and looking
Likewise,
forward to
Matt.
what 2025 is going to bring.
It's going to be great. I'm looking forward to it too. And, for anybody that's listening in to the podcast today, we want to hear from you guys. What do you guys want to hear from us? A lot of what we are going to bring in here in 2025 is going to be based on what you guys think would be interesting for us to discuss. So use the different feedback channels that we've got. Reach out to us on LinkedIn, go to the website, give us a contact, like and subscribe, or follow whatever methodology or motive you need to do inside of wherever it is you're listening to this podcast on, and share it with your friends and let us know what you guys want to hear, because we want to make this valuable for all of us, not just for Matt and I, but for the folks that are coming in and sharing their time with us to listen.
All right. Well, hey, happy new year, and we'll see you in the new year.
Happy New Year to you too, sir. And we'll see the rest of you in 2025. Take care.
Bye.